Thank you. It's a total honor to be here tonight, along with 10 Power and Bright. I think in kind of some of the most exciting space in the clean energy movement and industry. What they're doing is just tremendous, and I'm honored to be here. If I'm not making sense, it's because I'm very tired, not because I was up late working. I'm gonna get this out of my. I was I'm in the middle. I finished an amazing book last night. I recommend it to everyone that I'm talking to today because I finished it last night. It's called When Breath Becomes Air by this neuroscientist who recently passed on. He wrote the book about the meaning of life, which was apropos for your question about what your mission is and what your purpose is. And he becomes a very successful neurosurgeon and then gets cancer, terminal cancer, and he's kind of grappling with what do you do with this limited time, and it's just heartbreakingly beautiful. And so I was up till midnight reading it and up at 5, and so if I'm not making sense, just yell at me. But I was grappling with that last night in bed alone. So I'm going to talk about Mosaic a little bit, but I'm going to take a little bit of a less technical approach since it is sort of 8:30 at night, and talk more about kind of the reason why we're doing this and our theory of change and sort of our purpose and how we came into being. It's a little bit of a less linear story than just like, hey, I was at my MBA at Harvard and really love structured finance, and there's this great arbitrage opportunity in electricity rates, so let's start a solar company. It goes back a little bit deeper for myself and Billy Parrish, who I started the company with, whom I've known since I was about 16 years old, maybe a little younger. For me, I got turned on to clean energy. I had a crazy biology professor in middle school, and he was obsessed with climate change. He was just like, this is the issue of our time. This is the defining issue of our time. It's going to change planetary life. He was coming from a biology perspective, and he was very rattled by the idea that we were going to mess with our climate. And it stuck with me, but at the same time, we saw a solar panel, and I just got also the fear of climate, but also the love of solar happened kind of at the same time for me. They were kind of two wings of this bird, and I got really into clean energy and tried to get it on my high school. I got the Board of Education to approve going solar. When I was in high school, attended this environmental conference in DC where I met a few folks that would just completely changed my life. They actually put me in the hotel room at this youth environmental summit with the founders of an organization called the Black Mesa Water Coalition. Who here has heard of Black Mesa? Awesome. Really? Where? You did some strip mining. Oh, okay. That was why. All right. Well, that would have been an interesting conversation. So these folks were trying to shut down a coal mine. Thank you so much. These folks were trying to shut down a coal mine that was run by Peabody Coal Company. And the way they were transporting coal, they were taking coal from the Navajo and Hopi Nation and moving it into through a coal slurry where you mix it with water in the middle of the desert, which is really intelligent. And then you burn it and ship it to Los Angeles and Phoenix and basically power the Western grid. And these young Navajo and Hopi, these young indigenous people were saying, you know what? Our water is sacred. Our water is important to life because you need life is dependent on water, and you're going to take that away from us, and so we're going to try to shut you down. And they actually succeeded in shutting down one of the mines. And at the and this is actually that's the mine in the distance. This is actually Billy's and Wahela's the founder of the organization, their daughters, who are like my nieces. I love them to death. They're the best. This is a picture of what it looks like on Black Mesa. It's actually an extremely beautiful place in the world. There's sagebrush and juniper trees, and it just smells so fragrant. It's an amazing, magical place. And there's this coal mine. And what struck me so much about the coal mine was not just the enormous, it's so big. You can't even imagine. It goes past the horizon how big it is. And it's just this kind of destroyed, it looks like a vulture came down to Earth and just like scooped up the whole Earth and just like tossed it. And it's very intense viscerally. But what's even more intense is that to this day there are 18,000, 20,000 homes on the Navajo Nation that don't have running water or electricity. And yet, this is the battery of the Western United States. So, you talked about energy, poverty, energy justice. For me, this was kind of like, how the hell did this happen? Like, how could this place that is providing the energy for the air conditioners in Phoenix and Los Angeles and New Mexico and California still have no power? So, energy is the invisible framework for all of modern life. Without energy, I couldn't be talking to you right now through this microphone. You can't be recording. You wouldn't be able to move your water. It is what modern civilization is built on. So without it, you lack the ability to do work. Energy equals work. And so, I was talking before, Sandra, about how a lot of times in the climate movement and the clean energy movement, we're always talking about the future. Like when climate change happens, one day we're gonna have this conversation, we're gonna be in boats because the sea levels are rising. Well, it's actually, everyone knows it's happening now. Syria, a failed state due to agricultural collapse. What's happening with the Zika virus is absolutely terrifying. It's all happening right now. All these, the war in Iraq, all this is happening because of our dependence on fossil fuels, and it is wrecking the planet. It is causing political instability. It is expensive, and it is something that's absolutely unnecessary. Clean energy is less expensive than fossil fuels. So already there, in most places, actually in many places in the world right now, clean energy is by far cheaper, like where in Haiti and Mexico where you're working. But in the United States, in 20 or so markets, you can put solar on your home and save money from day one. But the upfront cost is expensive. So fossil fuels, you pay, you burn them, and you have to continually supply that fuel. Renewable energy, you install it, but the cost is high, or it's coming down, but it's high to begin with. And so that upfront cost is prohibitive to most people. In the U.S., our average loan size is $29,000. So you say to someone, hey, you have to pay $29,000, or you can get financing from a company like Mosaic. And so that's what we do. But going back to the original kind of like Black Mesa story, for us, when the community shut down the coal mine and they were talking about this transition strategy to solar, one of the important things that really struck me and Billy, who were out there at that time, was they didn't want to just be a royalty revenue earner, as they were, where Peabody took $100 billion of coal from the reservation and gave them a few $1 million a year. They still have over 60% unemployment in these communities. They didn't want to have that model. They wanted to be owners. They wanted to be participators. They wanted to benefit from the energy that was coming from them. And so for us, the model of giving people the ability to own their power was very powerful. It was a very powerful idea, which was a shift from utilities and fossil fuel companies treating their customers like ratepayers where you have no control, to becoming a power plant on your roof that you own. Fundamentally two different models, right? One, there's no choice, and the other, you actually own the agency, you own the choice, you own your power. And obviously there's a lot of verbiage that you can put into that and throw a lot of puns in there, but like literally you own your own power. It's on your rooftop and you own it. And through a Mosaic loan, if you don't have $29,000, which most people don't, you can. And so you asked what is the mission. I'll give the mission, but in the context of the vision. So our vision is a world that has 100% clean energy for every single person. Where we eliminate the need for fossil fuels of coal, oil, nuclear, and we run the world on solar, wind, water, geothermal, and complete electric mobility. And what I want to tell you, and what I was telling Sandra earlier, that it is happening a lot faster than we could have ever imagined. When I was in high school, solar was too expensive. Now they put it on and they're saving money every year. That decline in cost is creating exponential growth in the industry, that if you even slow down the growth of solar from where we are today and you actually drive it down considerably, and I won't even tell you the numbers because you probably won't believe me, but if you drive the numbers down considerably, we're still going to get to the world that's powered by 100% clean energy by 2030 by solar power. with the growth curves today. So our question at Mosaic that we are, because we believe this, maybe we're crazy, maybe I'm up too late reading, but we believe this. And so our question is, how do we accelerate it? How do we move it faster so we can get there by 2030 or even before? Because the difference between the goalposts of 2030 or 2050 is the difference between a livable planet where there's still chaos and an unlivable planet where it's just totally fucked. And so we would like the former, where we can live in this planet that civilization has developed on. And so our mission at Mosaic, the way our theory of change, and this might be very biased and influenced by our experience, but of course everyone is. Our mission at Mosaic is to empower millions of people to prosper from clean energy. Billy started the Energy Action Coalition. That's how I met him. He was friends with my older sister. I kind of hero worshipped him. I still do to this day. He's an unbelievable human being. He's kind of a force of nature and completely unstoppable. It's amazing to have a co-founder that you absolutely love and his family. I wish you all to find that if you do start a company. He was trying to build student movements. He actually helped build the largest student movement for climate change, and started thinking about how do we get all these people to kind of get involved. Maybe it was Girl Scouts or solar, or how do we get people to be involved? But a lot of the activism at the time was just click and tell your senator to sign the climate bill that's going to fail because our political governance doesn't work to solve crisis. And so we both were like really frustrated about Copenhagen, really frustrated about our government, and we're like, how do we get people to actually benefit from clean energy? How do we make this happen in a way that's easy? And so, we'll go back. We started the company with crowdfunding for clean energy because we're like, hey, if everyone can just invest in it and own a piece of the sun, this would be like the easiest way. Our regulatory system is totally screwed for this. It basically doesn't work. The SEC will try to shut you down, and it's very hard. And so we were like, okay, maybe what's needed is solving this upfront capital question. This, basically the barrier is I can't afford it. Okay, how do we solve that for them? But what drives decisions at Mosaic in terms of product, in terms of strategy, is how do we get as many people as possible to own, to benefit, to prosper? Because we feel that the more stakeholders that are invested in it, the more people that own clean energy, the more people that are financially have skin in the game. We saw this in Iowa, by the way, a few years ago when the Republicans tried to take away the wind tax credits. There were 22,000 workers in Iowa working in the wind industry. Guess what happened? Republicans were out. So there is there's backing, there's kind of credibility to my theory of change, our theory of change at Mosaic, which is the more people that have jobs in solar, as Jonah's creating, that are benefiting by saving money by not using polluting sources like diesel and kerosene, the more they'll actually vote, the more they'll help make this transition. And actually, solar is actually a viral kind of thing where you see where we make a loan somewhere, and all of a sudden the probability of loans that are going to happen in that community are like, the increase is significant because it's social proof. The social proof element is critical to this revolution. It's like when people started with mobile phones and you see someone has it, it makes it socially acceptable and makes it possible. You're like, oh, this could actually really work. So in terms of the profit side of this, which I just talked a lot about the impact side, this is the biggest market in the world. You're talking about companies of ExxonMobil, Shell, the biggest companies in the world. If they continue in their business model, losing all of their value and it transitioning to clean energy, because I still believe, and maybe you will too, if you look at the numbers that we look at and see how the industry has been growing, that their business model will be obsolete. A few years ago, what was the name of the company? Peabody Coal, for instance, the company that we tried to shut down, has gone from a multi-billion-dollar company to maybe it might go bankrupt. 5 coal companies of the largest coal companies have gone bankrupt this year. Why are they going bankrupt? Because their ratepayers, their source of revenue, are defecting and starting to go solar. It's a smaller market now, $800 billion residential electricity. It's going to grow as the population grows, but the real growth is going to be the fact that renewable energy is going to become the plurality, the dominant source of energy in the next 20 years. maybe we're doing it really right. That could be a possibility, but I think it also has to do with the fact, the previous slide, like we're riding a huge wave. And this wave is just, it's like you have to catch up to it. It's crazy. And so our loan, what we're doing on a daily basis today in loan volume is more than what we did on a monthly basis last year. That of course has its own complexities in terms of how to grow a business and operationalize that. But we, we're seeing this kind of hockey stick, crazy exponential growth curve where we're literally, doing, next year over $500 million of loan volume in the U.S. alone. And hopefully we'll be in Mexico with Jonah and you in Haiti at some point or wherever we're going to end up. But this is in the U.S. alone. So that's sort of the quick, I'm sure there's like unbelievable amounts of questions that you all have. But I would just like to leave with the thought that, if you're thinking about getting into a business with impact, there is no better business in my mind. And of course, again, I'm very biased because this is what I do. But the challenge of our time is climate change, is transitioning the world to 100% clean energy. It affects every other, it is the cornerstone issue that affects all the other issues. You can't have clean water, you can't have access to education or healthcare without this fundamental building block. And so I'm a very positive in terms of like, whatever way you're going to work on it, it's going to benefit the world and it's going to be amazing. This is going to be a multitude movement where really, and that's why we called it Mosaic. There's all the pieces that come together. One of my heroes, Bill McKibben, who helped start 350.org, said there's no silver bullet, but there is a silver buckshot. So, sort of here comes the world, and we're gonna just try everything. And so that's what I want. I wanted to come tonight to try to plant the seed with you to hopefully you'll think about starting a business in this unbelievable market and have a huge impact.